Hi, Analisa 6 here with the Sober Curator and the Lady of Leisure to bring you the August 2024 astrology forecast. If you are new here, I am an astrologer and a tarot reader, and I go through each day of the month and just talk about some of the transits that are going on. It's a pretty long video, it usually lasts about an hour, and I just kind of wing it. So I'm going to share the natal wheel, not natal wheel, I'm going to share the I haven't recorded a video in a minute. I apologize. I'm going to share the astrology for where we're at. We're going to start out on August 1st, and we're just going to walk through the wheel of the zodiac. If you like this video, make sure to hit like, subscribe. I try to post these every single month. You can find me at theladyofleisure.com, at theladyofleisure, or at Analisa6 on Instagram, and then also thesobercurator.com. I am in recovery. The Sober Curator is a lifestyle blog, and so I usually try to give a little bit like a sober spin on astrology, but not always. This applies to everybody no matter what. I'm a Leo myself, that's why it's called Lady of Leisure, and we're in Leo season, so happy birthday to all of the August Leos and August Virgos. Will enter Virgo season at the middle of the month. My dog has some health problems right now, and you might hear him gagging and coughing in the background. You can kind of see him in the mirror right here. That's actually really funny. He's eating a greenie that I gave him. But yeah, anyways, so let's jump right in and talk about August. August is kind of a big deal month. There's a lot going on. And obviously, you know, this is a big year, election year, and just things that are happening. I'm not a political astrologer. I don't talk about electional astrology, but, you know, you can hear some of these things and think about how wild it is that certain things are happening right now. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully the last time I did this, I did not show up in the video. I'm not really sure why that was. I'm kind of hoping that I show up in this one. I guess we'll just find out. Let me make sure everything's good here. Okay. All right, so you should be able to see the natal chart. So we start out August every month in Leo season. It's also the pagan holiday Lammas. And so August 1st is kind of a, you know, a fun month for just kind of all of the cosmic celestial energy. And we also are starting out this August with Mercury at 3 degrees of Virgo in its shadow. So if you're not familiar with what a shadow period is, every single planet, for the most part, except for the sun and the moon, will station retrograde, but they all have different retrograde cycles every year. And so Mercury, being the closest planet to us, stations retrograde the most in a year. It's usually 3 to 4 times in a year, and it changes what sign every 2 years, or what element. You know, so for 2 years, there'll be the fire signs, and then the earth signs, and the water signs, all of that kind of stuff. And so this year, Mercury's been teetering in the fire signs and kind of working its way through the earth signs and the retrograde cycle a little bit. So we started out the end of last year with a Sag Capricorn Mercury retrograde, and then we had one in Aries, and now we're going to have one in Virgo Leo. And so kind of think about this story arc, because when Mercury's shifting through different elements, the story arc starts to change a little bit. So you know, like it hits a different part of our birth chart. So like wherever you have Virgo and Leo, that's where this Mercury retrograde's happening. So we're just looking at, you know, the chart for, you know, Pacific Standard Time. But if you go to your personal natal chart and you see where you've got this axis on here, the Leo Virgo axis, you'll see where Mercury retrograde is going to be happening for you. So shadow periods basically are when Mercury is about 10 degrees. Every astrologer uses a different orb of influence. I use with Mercury usually about a 10-degree orb of influence. So when Mercury is 10 degrees away from its retrograde degree, that's when, for me, I consider the shadow period starting. Sometimes, you know, it's more like 5 degrees and a little bit closer in. So we're going to look at basically the first day of August. So we've got Mercury in the shadow period in Virgo. We have Venus at 25 degrees Leo. And this Venus cycle is another kind of big deal because we had a really significant Venus retrograde last year around this same time. So I believe Venus retrograde, if we were to look back at this time last year, started in July. It started July 23rd and it lasted all throughout August. And we actually started out August 1st last year with the same degree point almost with Venus. So Venus was at 26 degrees. This might actually be, no, that's right. So Venus was at 26 degrees Leo on August 1st of last year. And we're starting August out with Venus at 25 degrees of Leo on August 1st this year. So she's back where she was last year on the same exact day. So this is a really powerful and positive time to reflect on where you were at August 1st last year, what you were going through. Where is Leo in your chart, and where was this retrograde with Venus happening in your chart? Because now she's coming back around and hitting that same point again, but she's not retrograde. And so it's kind of this continuation of the story that's building upon itself. Venus retrograde, Venus is the planet that rules money, beauty, love, relationships, our connection to values and how we kind of perceive self-worth. And so Venus retrograde in Leo hits everybody different, but it hits all those themes for all of us. And, you know, wherever it's hitting in your chart is where things were coming up for you. So, you know, for me, my marriage was going through a lot of shit during Venus retrograde in Leo. And this year I'm divorced. So I think that I'm, you know, about to be divorced. So just that's kind of an example of how these transits can kind of influence the course of our lives in major ways. And, you know, kind of thinking about where I was at August 1st in my relationship, because where Leo hits my relationships, and where I'm at this year in relation to that. And Venus, you know, retrograde, it brings all this kind of conflict and dust up. When it's retrograde, you know, it brings tension so that we can acknowledge what needs to be worked on and what needs to be pushed through and kind of evolved. But when she comes back around, she really wants things to heal. She wants there to be kind of this like harmony. And, you know, she's the planet that represents this, you know, need for connection and love. And so when she's, you know, coming back around, she's very much trying to heal whatever was there before. So that's kind of where you can ask yourself, when you think about August 1st last year, what were you working through? What was hard for you? What felt like it was, you know, maybe challenging your sense of self-worth or challenging something in a relationship? Were you going through anything financially? Were you going through anything with your self-concept, like how you perceive yourself? I know I was like, all of it was happening for me across the board. And I feel like what I've been working through over the last year versus this year is totally on brand for this. So, you know, and Leo energy is all about self-expression and building confidence. And so it's creativity, it's connecting with joy, pleasure, romance, our inner child. It wants to play, it wants to laugh, it wants to be just kind of in its power in a way that's fun. You know, Leo wants to have a lot of fun. And I think that when we think about Venus in Leo, it really is, you know, kind of this expression of the parts of Leo that do kind of revolve around pleasure and romance and how we're giving that to ourselves. The Leo shadow has a lot to do with, and shadow, I mean, is kind of like the unevolved kind of side of Leo, really seeks outside of the self for reassurance. So it wants other people to come fan the flame and fan the fire. And it has a, you know, kind of this like bottomless pit of a need for admiration and applause and like kind of this, you know, yes, tell me I'm great, you know, kind of thing. And so there's a lot of, you know, toxic Leos out there that, you know, I think it's interesting when people have dated Leos are like, oh, this Leo I dated was so love bomby and so aloof and prideful and all that stuff. And I can relate to that, you know, as a Leo myself. Like, yes, we're in our unevolved state very much like that. The evolved Leo is somebody that's really confident within the self and owns that power within the self and doesn't necessarily need other people to fill a hole. They also don't necessarily need a lot of grandiose gestures because they're capable of giving that to themselves. And then not only are they capable of giving it to themselves and filling their own cup, but then they're emanating like the sun that warmth and that light to their community and the people around them. They're not necessarily just trying to take from everything and fill the void. They're they're good within and they're emanating a light. That's the evolved Leo. Leo in its evolved state is, it's royal, and it's about owning who you are and being good with who you are, even with for all your flaws, and all of your maybe things that aren't so great either. You're just in your power about it. And so Venus and Leo is a really good opportunity to work on that stuff. It can be really good to recognize, where do I look for gratification and validation from somebody else? Where are there unhealthy codependent dynamics happening within that? Where can I find more love and self-worth and value on my own? And then what do I bring to the table? I think if you want compliments from other people, or you're looking for validation from other people, do you also give that back? Is that something that you're also, emanating to? So I've reflected a lot as a Leo through this journey of self, on that theme, like the theme of validation, because I think that validation, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not inherently bad to need reassurance, validation, respect, admiration, those things. But it's bad when we are depressed or empty or feel like we're nothing if we don't have somebody outside of ourselves filling that. We should be the ones filling that within ourselves. And the thing about, and then sharing it, and then it's great to have people compliment and all of that. And that should just be kind of like the sprinkles on top, but not the necessity. So Venus and Leo brings up a lot of those themes. And, think about it over the last year, because that's kind of where we're starting out the month of August. The other thing that's happening too is that this Venus has been making a trine aspect, which is an easy aspect to Chiron that we've had in Aries for quite a while. But this, this energy got hit last year too. And, it keeps getting hit by these Mercury retrogrades, and Mercury retrograde, we're going to talk about later, making an aspect to Chiron. But Chiron's a wound that we have. And in Aries, it's wounds around identity, and our relationship to self. And so again, Venus is here trying to help us heal any of these wounds or identity issues. So those are things to think about in August, like this Leo season. We also start out the month with Mars and Jupiter both in Gemini. Saturn is retrograde in Pisces. Uranus is still in Taurus. Neptune, stationed retrograde last month, is going to be retrograde this whole month of August in Pisces at that 29-degree point, which is a big deal. This is going to be Neptune's last retrograde cycle in Pisces, until it stations direct and then moves into Aries in March of next year. So again, Neptune's been in Pisces for 15 years, and we're wrapping up a story in a cycle. And so once, we go through kind of this last bit, it's crazy too, watching where this is happening for people. Like I have a friend that has lived in a place for 14 years, 15 years, and is going through kind of some upheaval. My marriage was 14 years and it's ending as soon as Neptune's done. It's just like all these things that kind of come up. So what's been going on the last 15 years? What's coming to a close, or what's starting to shift in this kind of transformational way? Because by March of 2025, the end of March, we're going to be in a completely different cycle with Neptune. And Neptune, stays in a sign for about 15 years. And then we have Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees and retrograde as well. So again, Pluto's been retrograde for a minute, so that's nothing new, but that's where everything is at currently, starting out August. We also have the moon in Cancer, which gives us a good energy for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just start going through each day of the month. I really wish my video would stay on here. I don't even know if you guys can see it. This might be really obnoxious. Zoom changed how they do the share, and I used to be able to see myself on here, and I don't think it does it anymore. And I haven't figured out, I don't think it's letting my video be on here. So I think I'm just a talking voice. That's okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So Friday, August 2nd, we have Venus in Leo making a square to Uranus in Taurus. So, again, Venus representing relationships. We have Venus over here making what's called a square, which is a hard aspect to Uranus. This is a challenging aspect. Uranus is called the destroyer in a lot of astrology circles. It's the planet that brings sudden change, sudden destruction, sudden revolutionary things. And Venus, you know, is that relationship energy, that kind of like beauty, harmony, all of that kind of stuff, self-worth things. And so we could experience change with money. We could experience, you know, unexpected change. We could experience unexpected change in a relationship dynamic. We could experience some kind of aha insight about ourselves and our relationship to how we love ourselves. Those are all themes that happen on August 2nd. Let's go ahead. We don't have much else going on directly. I'm going to try to move through this quickly because these videos can take a long time. So on Saturday the 3rd, the moon is going to enter Leo and start making its way up to our new moon. So we're going to be in the dark phase of the moon. And then on August 4th, which is actually today that I'm recording this video, we have our new moon at 12 degrees Leo. And that actually hits exact in the AM. So we're already there. And then Venus is going to make a hard aspect, what's called an inconjunct to this Neptune. So we've got Venus at 29 degrees and Neptune at 29 degrees. And that happens at 12:24 p.m. Pacific time. It's already happened as I'm recording this video. And what's interesting, so Neptune is the planet that it's called the dissolver, and it dissolves reality. It dissolves boundaries, structures, you know, things that are tangible, and it pulls us into this imaginal state. And so it connects us more to spirituality. It connects us to art, music, creativity. But it also is the planet that connects us to unhealthy forms of escapism. And so that can be through, you know, anything that we want to escape reality in whatever way. Like, so for me in recovery, it's drugs and alcohol. You know, for some people, it might be fantasy, you know, video games, movies. You know, there's so many different ways to escape reality. And sometimes there's healthy ways to do it. You know, I think being an artist and being creative can be a really healthy way to channel the need to kind of like dissolve into a different space. But, you know, those of us that abuse substances or food or sex, like that kind of stuff, that can be really destructive. So this transit with Venus is really positive for creativity. I mean, having any kind of Leo Piscean aspects, so powerful for creative people, especially in music. But it can be really toxic and detrimental for addicts if we're not working a program or have some kind of thing grounding us. This is also a transit that can make us more delusional in relationships. Piscean energy, Neptunian energy also represents lies, deception, illusions. And so, you know, in aspect to Venus, we could feel delusional about a relationship. We could feel delusional about our perception of self when it comes to how we perceive our own physical self. You know, there's a lot of themes around that. So, and at 29 degrees is a critical degree point that has to do with some pivotal ending or some kind of lesson that's being learned. So this is transformational, especially because of the new moon hitting at 12 degrees Leo. So the new moon that hit in the morning, this chart doesn't have it. I could make it exact if we want here. I may as well. Let's see. It's hitting at 4:13 a.m. Here we go. Oh, I don't know how to turn these off. I really need to get these out of here. Okay, let's see. 4:13 a.m. Oh my gosh. How do I get my text messages out of here? I don't want you guys seeing my text messages. Let me see if I can hide. Okay, I don't know. That was weird. Okay, I shouldn't be doing this on here. I should have paused the recording. Whatever. I'm a mess. Okay, so getting us to the exact, let's see here, 4:13 a.m. So we've got the new moon hitting here at 12 degrees. So new moons are a time for setting intentions. And anytime that we're, you know, experiencing a new moon energy, we can look at our birth chart and figure out where we have the sign that it's in. So it's in Leo. And then whatever house it's in will be the area that's good for us to set intention. So in this chart, it's the second house, you know, Venus is here. The second house, represents our connection to material wealth, abundance. I guess not necessarily abundance. It's more like our relationship to money and whether or not we have a healthy relationship to building financial security. It's also a self-worth area. But everybody has Leo in a different area of the chart. So you can look and see where yours is. And that's a good place for you to set intentions for your life moving forward. This Leo new moon is a really good time for you to set intentions on anything that has to do with building strong self-confidence, creative energy, connecting to your inner child in positive, healthy ways, having fun, what brings you pleasure, what brings you joy. All of those types of themes are really positive. This new moon does kind of make a trine aspect to the North Node in Aries. So I do think self-love and self-worth themes are a good thing to focus on. It is kind of somewhat in a sextile to, not kind of, it is not exact, but it is in a sextile to Jupiter and Mars and Gemini as well. And so this is also being open to expanding perceptions of self, how we think about things, how we analyze things, the way that we take action in our lives, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a big theme for the 4th. The other major 2 transits that happen later on in the evening, let's go ahead and move to later tonight. We get to 7:23 exactly. We are going to see Venus leaving Leo and entering Virgo. And then Mercury is going to station retrograde at 4 degrees of Virgo. So we even have this kind of like little Mercury-Venus conjunction happening later on in the day. And so Mercury stationing retrograde, the days that Mercury stations usually are called the trickiest days. So that, the energy is more trickstery. It's all different for each of us and where it's hitting in the chart. One of the things to know about Mercury in Virgo is that Mercury is considered to be in domicile because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. It also rules Gemini. So it is having some influence over the Jupiter-Mars conjunction in Gemini right now. So, it's a powerful energy. Mercury retrogrades are always powerful, but, it's definitely a big energy for the new moon too. So let's review in very Mercury retrograde fashion. What does Mercury retrograde mean? Mercury is the planet that represents communication, our thoughts, how we perceive reality, how in Virgo, how we organize things, how we approach a problem. Mercury in Virgo loves to problem solve, loves to analyze and think about where things could be better or different. Virgo can be associated with harsh judgment for that reason, because Virgo wants to perfect and wants to build upon and make things more fluid in certain ways. Virgos are also said to be very scattered at times, though, because when you can see a big picture problem, you can see a lot of various solutions. And so a lot of times the problem for a lot of mutable people like Virgos is, oh, I see so many potential problems. I see so many potential solutions. Which one should we pick? And that can be kind of something that a lot of, Gemini or Virgo dominant people do have a little bit of a hard time with, is reining all of the scattered ideas and thoughts in. So we might feel some of that energy having Mars and Jupiter and Gemini with Mercury and Venus and Virgo. We might start to feel a little bit more scattered and like everything's all over the place. How do we hone it in? How do we get things more, locked in and kind of organized? And, the Mercury retrograde is all about reflecting and reviewing. And so when Mercury is retrograde, it's not really the best time to take action on anything. It's a good time to reflect and review and reassess whether or not the plan that you have in place is the right one. However, I've had plenty of things happen during Mercury retrograde where I had no choice. I've had to take action. I do it. And I will say that every time I do that, and then there's another Mercury retrograde, there is some kind of like hangover from the last one that I'm dealing with in the next one, which has been a really interesting theme. Like when I had my Jeep, I would have car problems with it during a few years of the same, like every time Mercury was retrograde, I'd have issues with it. Now that it's not in my life, I'm not having those issues anymore, but that was a theme. I also had a bank account for a while that I had opened during a Mercury retrograde. And so every time that Mercury would station retrograde, I'd have some issue with the bank account. That was really interesting. So that's why it's kind of good to not do too much during Mercury retrograde, because that creates kind of a pattern on when those things might come up for you again. So again, like a good time to not necessarily solidify anything, but it's a great time to reassess and review what's happening and how you can kind of do things moving forward once it stations direct. And then Venus is going to be in Virgo up until the very end of August. So we'll talk about Venus entering her home sign of Libra, but Venus in Virgo, you know, again, this is a sign of relationships. And so we might be taking a more grounded analytical approach towards relationships moving forward through August. That could be part of the Mercury retrograde, like, you know, us taking a more practical view on relationship energy as well. And that goes for our relationship to self too. Okay, let's talk about, let's kind of just keep pumping through here because this is going to take forever if I don't. Okay, so August 5th, we have, oh, my other little book here. When we hit Monday, we've got Venus in Virgo making a hard aspect to Pluto in Aquarius. So Venus aspects to Pluto oftentimes have to do with a death and rebirth around our relationships. Pluto in Aquarius has a lot to do with community. Venus in Virgo has a lot to do with how we're of service to our community. We might be reflecting and reviewing on, you know, how we show up for other people and whether or not people show up for us and how that is influencing us moving forward. The moon also joins the Virgo party on this day. So we're going to have a lot elevated in Virgo starting out Monday the 5th. Tuesday on the 6th, we just have the moon in Virgo. I do a moon forecast every week, and I'm probably not going to end up getting to next week, so I'm going out of town, but I don't talk about the moon in these videos because it just takes too much time. Okay, so August 7th, our next big transit is going to be the sun making a sextile to Jupiter, which is a very harmonious aspect. However, sun-Jupiter aspects are kind of, I always think of the flight of Icarus, where, you know, we get too close to the sun, we get too grandiose, and the fall can be really hard and really heavy. So, you know, the sun in Leo wants to have all this fun, wants to feel empowered. And in Leo kind of, again, can have like no bottom to the well. Like, it's just like, let's just make everything big and grandiose and have a great time. And Jupiter's the same. Jupiter has no boundary. So in one sense, this is a really positive day for having fun and just being free and in your element and just kind of, you know, it's the last few weeks of summer. Like, let's just have a good time. But it's also that thing of, you know, be mindful that, you know, you might overdo it, especially if you're an addict. Luckily, Mercury and Venus in Virgo, even though it's a scattered energy sometimes, can also be really grounding if we're tapping into it the right way. So Venus and Mercury are actually going to be making a cazimi, so a conjunction in Virgo. Great time for communication and relationships. Because Mercury is retrograde, it might be problematic, and the sun making a sextile to Jupiter might be a lot, but it's a positive time, and it can be a really healing time to have serious or practical conversations with someone, and, you know, that you're in a relationship with. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It could be, you know, somebody that you're just close with. Also, the way that we're analyzing our relationship to self, having the sun and Jupiter involved is a part of that. And yeah, it's a good energy overall, even with Mercury retrograde. Okay, so we're going to move on to Thursday. The moon is going to enter Libra. That's about it. Then we have on the 9th, the sun in Leo is going to make a hard aspect to Saturn in Pisces. So, you know, this aspect, the inconjunct, also known as the quincunx, is considered to be a hard aspect, but it's not necessarily bad. This can be a really positive energy for being, there can be tension around some kind of project that we're doing or some kind of energy that we're feeling within the self, but that tension kind of forces us to think outside of the box and maybe approach a situation in a new and creative way. And again, Leo and Pisces energy is super creative. This is really good for artists and people channeling their need to escape in certain ways into art. But if you're not doing that, then, you know, you can escape in ways that are unhealthy. So you just want to be mindful of how that is. The sun represents the identity. Saturn represents karmic lessons, boundaries, authority. So, you know, we do learn certain karmic lessons when we have a Saturn aspect to the sun. So, you know, what are you learning right now about yourself? You know, what's your relationship to how you perceive yourself, and what's your relationship to joy, creativity, and escapism? How does that operate for you? August 10th, the moon's going to enter Scorpio, which is its sign of its fall, and it's going to be squaring a lot of the fixed energy. So we might, towards the end of the week, feel a little bit more reclusive. So we start out August 5th a lot more expansive and kind of out here, and the weekend having the moon in Scorpio on Saturday and Sunday, we might really feel like we might need a little bit of a break. We might not get one though. Okay, the 12th, the moon is in Scorpio all day, making some aspects to everything. There might be some tension on this day, especially with Mercury retrograde. And then on the 13th, the moon's going to enter Sagittarius. The moon in Sagittarius really ignites our need for freedom and adventure. So the 13th and 14th and 15th, we might, sorry, I'm getting over a cold right now and I'm still having this dry cough. But yeah, we might really feel like a need for freedom and adventure. It's a Mercury retrograde is not the best time to travel, but moon in Sagittarius, we're like, we have the travel bug. The 14th, we've got, this is our next big day of transits on the 14th. So this is 10 days from now. The Mercury retrograde in Virgo is going to make a hard aspect to Pluto in Aquarius. So again, communication themes, this could be technology problems, communication problems, all plans not going the way that we wanted them to, all of that kind of stuff. Mars is going to make its exact conjunction with Jupiter in Gemini. So Mars and Jupiter and Gemini are going to make a conjunction. And then Mercury is retrograde, going to enter Leo and be at that 29-degree Leo point. So the 14th is one of those days where we might experience a lot of turbulence in many areas of life, especially around communication. And there's also kind of some ego stuff going on here. There's a check yourself before you wreck yourself energy when Mars is doing its thing, especially around communication in Gemini with this Mercury retrograde. I think of the Knight of Wands reversed on this day, which means slow your roll. You know, you need to be mindful to not be arrogant or overly aggressive in how you're communicating. On the 15th, we have the moon in Sagittarius doing its thing, igniting our need for adventure, seeking, wanderlust, all of that. And then we have the sun making a harmonious aspect to Chiron and Aries. So sun in Leo makes a trine to Chiron and Aries. And then Mercury in Leo retrograde is going to make a hard aspect to Neptune in Pisces. The moon's going to move into Capricorn, and then Mars is going to square Saturn. Mars square Saturn is no joke. Mars and Saturn in traditional astrology are both called malefic. That means that they tend to bring challenges and hardships. So when they're in aspect to each other, challenges and hardships are happening in a major way somewhere in our chart. Mars is the planet that represents action, confrontation. Saturn, you know, is karmic lessons, blockages, barriers, authority. And it's a mutable square. So we might feel anxious. We might feel like we're having a hard time regulating feelings. We could feel overly emotional. It's not uncommon for us to feel unstable mentally during a transit like this. However, with the sun trining Chiron, we also have an opportunity to heal identity wounds again. So that's really powerful. And then Mercury in conjunct Neptune in Pisces, in Leo, like Mercury in Leo retrograde in conjunct Neptune in Pisces, we are confronting maybe some illusions around things. And this is, again, a great energy for creativity. But when it comes to perceiving what's real and what's not, it's challenging. So we need to be really mindful and we need to slow down. I'm going to pause this and get a cough drop. All this talking and this cough I have is just making everything worse. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to Friday, August 16th. we just continue to be under the influence of that Mars square to Saturn and some of that Sun trine Chiron, Mercury retrograde in conjunct to Neptune, but we've got the moon in Capricorn. I personally really like the moon in Capricorn. It does help us get more grounded in reality and have a more practical approach to things. August 17th, the moon's going to enter Aquarius. And we're ingressing towards a full moon happening in a couple days. That's pretty much all we got going on. August 18th, my birthday. I get really excited about my birthday. Mercury, I look at the transits for my birthday this year and I'm just like, why even try to do anything? Maybe we have Mercury and Leo making a hard square to Uranus and Taurus. So for me, trying to make a plan on my birthday sounds stupid because I don't feel like anything's going to go right. Mercury, the planet of communication, in Leo, the energy of creativity, fire, passion, pride, ego, makes a hard aspect to Uranus. So, you know, potential for something to happen that's unexpected. It can be good, it could be bad. Because it's retrograde, it feels like it's probably going to be hard. Sun is going to make a conjunction to that Mercury. And also, you know, if that's happening, that means it's squaring Uranus too. And then Venus is going to square Jupiter. So challenging in relationships, challenging with communication. You know, a Sun cazimi to Mercury can make our perception of self skewed. Yeah, it's my birthday. We're going to move on. I'm not that excited about those transits. August 19th, we have the full moon happening at 27 degrees Aquarius. So full moons are a great time for manifestation typically. It's a great time for also letting things go and releasing, especially when it's at a later degree point, like 27 degrees. This full moon is going to hit at 11:26 a.m. I can go back to here. You get our timing better. Yeah, so 11:26 a.m. we're going to have the full moon, and Mercury's in this mix. So communication is a big theme. Perception of self is a big theme. Aquarius is the sign that connects us to community. So we might be in a reflection on the identity of self versus the emotional relationship to our community. Sun is going to square Uranus on this day. Venus is going to make an opposition to Saturn in Pisces. So Venus in Virgo opposition to Saturn in Pisces. Jupiter's going to square Saturn, and then the moon's going to enter Pisces in the afternoon. This is a really big day transit wise. If we're going to talk about kind of what to do in the full moon, I think that this energy has a lot more to do with letting things go and releasing stagnant energy than it does calling things in. But even when you're releasing energy, you still want to put something in its place. You always want to call in what you want to put in its place. So let's talk about this. We've got Venus opposite Saturn. So we're learning how to integrate practical relationship dynamics with Virgo, with this kind of Neptunian idealism that Saturn is in, fantasy versus reality. And of course, reality is subjective. Sun, so identity squaring the destroyer in Taurus. Perception of self is a big theme during this full moon. Big changes around perception of self. Jupiter squaring Saturn. Jupiter aspects to Saturn are always interesting to me because we've got Jupiter, this expander, and Saturn, this contractor, working together. I personally feel like when you have an expander and a contractor working together, you get manifestation abilities that bring grandiose ideas into reality. But when you have things like Gemini and Pisces, there's a lot of this whole full moon has a lot of delusional energy. I'm pro Delulu. I think that we can manifest destiny to an extent for sure. But sometimes these transits bring in the harsh truth, the reality of where we're actually at in ourselves and what work needs to be done first before we can actually really get to the reality that we're trying to manifest. So this could be one of those days where we feel kind of hard on ourselves. Maybe there's some tension in relationship dynamics. Maybe we feel a huge need to let go of something in a community or relationship dynamic, and it's intense. We're going to move on. August 20th, we have the moon in Pisces. Really great time to recharge and focus on self-care and creativity. August 21st, the sun is going to make an inconjunct or quincunx to Neptune in Pisces. This is some Delulu energy, great for art, great for music, great for creativity, great for doing things that are fun, dangerous for fantasies, escapism through substances. If you're feeling like you want to relapse, this is a time to call on your community and get help. The moon is going to enter Aries in the afternoon. And then the 22nd is Virgo season. So here's where we enter the mutable earth sign of Virgo. Happy birthday, Virgos. We're officially out of Leo season by August 22nd. August 23rd, Mercury retrograde in Leo is going to make a trine to Chiron in Aries. Really good time to heal any identity wounds around communication. That's a big theme. So we might have something trigger us in communication, but it's an opportunity to heal it. Oh, I'm not done there. Venus in Virgo is going to make a hard aspect to that Chiron in Aries. So again, we've got these transits. So much relationship energy is a big theme of August in terms of how we communicate in relationships, how we approach a problem and practically try to solve it. And then where it triggers the ego identity, those are big themes. The moon is going to enter Taurus later on in the day, and then Mercury in Leo is going to make a sextile to Mars in Gemini. So again, this is a really powerful day for confronting communication dynamics and trying to work them out. August 24th, we have Mars making a sextile to Chiron in Aries, healing identity wounds around perceptions and how we analyze information. Mars in Gemini is a really anxious energy, so we might be confronting, our nervous system and how it's regulated. How we approach problems is a huge theme in August. Sunday, the 25th, the moon is going to be in Taurus all day before it enters Gemini in the evening. I love the moon in Taurus. It's very grounding. It helps us connect to nature, to our bodies, to food. It's a really positive energy. Moon in Gemini, however, can kind of amplify some of that anxiety that we might have. And so we just need to be really mindful with the thoughts that we're telling ourselves. This is a powerful time for meditation and grounding exercises that help get us kind of, in the physical. Tapping is a really good thing to do when your mind's racing. August 26th, we have our last quarter moon in Gemini. So again, it's a positive time for us to be focusing on grounding our minds. 27th, Venus is going to make a trine to Uranus in Taurus. So, trines are easy aspects, but they're not necessarily good or bad. And so Venus in Virgo, relationship energy, practical application, some major change happening potentially with Uranus trine. Also, this is a very financial transit. So we might have issues come up around money that we have to address. It's not necessarily bad either. We might be in a place where maybe we have an ability to rethink how we're managing money in some way, and we're approaching it with a practical mind. The moon's going to be in Gemini the rest of the day. August 28th, Mercury will finally station direct, not be retrograde anymore. And that is going to be at 21 degrees of Leo. Then we have Venus the moon's going to enter Cancer before that happens. Venus is also going to make an opposition to Neptune in Pisces. So again, we can get caught up in a fantasy about somebody with a Venus-Neptune transit. It can also be really romantic and fun. It can also be a hard transit for money in terms of seeing reality with what's happening. It's also a good energy for art and creativity. So it really just depends on how you're choosing to use it. Then on the 29th, Venus is going to leave Virgo and enter her home sign of Libra. Venus in Libra is a really positive energy that wants to bring balance, harmony, and just collaborative energy when it's in Libra. And then Venus is going to make a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So again, another Venus aspect to Pluto, something is going through a transition or transformation when it comes to a relationship. August 30th, the moon's going to enter Leo. And then the last day of August, the moon's in Leo and we don't have any major aspects. The next big aspect happens starting out September. So that is it. I am going to leave you all there. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you feel like you know kind of what to expect for the month of August. I do horoscope videos and I'm going to be posting those throughout the day, and I'm hoping to get through all of them. I'm going to try to keep them on the shorter side because I don't have time to do them outside of today. But if you liked this, hit like, subscribe. Sorry, I got this cough drop. Still about to cough. And yeah, I book readings too. If you want to do a private session with me, you can email me. I'll have my email in the description box. And I do astrology and tarot sessions through Zoom one-on-one. You can visit my website for more information on that and shoot me an email. And I will see you guys all in September, and good luck with this Mercury retrograde cycle. All right, bye.